Hello, my name is Jim McGillivray and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this. We'll go over a tune today and you can print the music out for this tune by going back to the description of this video on my YouTube channel where you will find a link to a PDF. Today we are going to continue studying the Lament for Alastair Dearg MacDonell of Glengarry. Last time we went through the ground, the first variation, which is called the G-ish, and the first variation doubling, the G-ish doubling. Now we'll continue with the Taorluath, the Crunluath, and the Crunluath mach variations. The Taorluath variation will be slightly slower than your G-ish variation. So when you get to the end of your G-ish variation, there's going to be just a very slight retardendo, a very slight slowing down in the last 2 or 3 notes. This is very subtle. Don't overdo this or it becomes a little bit maudlin. Maybe something like this. So very subtle transitions, but it's clear that we're making a very slight modification there because we're going into another variation. Once you're into the Taorluath variation, it counts in duple time like this. Ho, ba-dum, bee, ba-dum, bee, ba-dum, 1, 2, ha-ba-dum, 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 1, and again, long note before the movement, short note afterwards. The only other thing I would like to talk about with the Taorluath variation, and this applies to the Crunluath variation as well, is there are D, Taorluaths, and Crunluaths in this tune. I want to remind you that when you play a D, Taorluath, or Crunluath, you use the B finger and not the D finger. Be patient with these D movements. They're difficult, they're awkward, they're clumsy, and most of us never get the D Taorluath or Crunluath as fast as a regular Taorluath or Crunluath, but they have their own special sound that works very well in the tunes. If Taorluaths in general give you trouble, there is a video on this YouTube channel on Taorluaths. You might want to have a look at that. Okay, let's hear the whole Taorluath variation played on the dagger chanter. I'm going to play the transition from the G-ish doubling into the Taorluath, and I'll play the transition from the Taorluath into the Crunluath. As I say, this is the one spot, well, not the one spot, but this is a major spot in Piobaireachd where you can let your artistry show, is the way you move from one variation to another. Okay, let's hear the Taorluath. As you can hear, this is quite a pointed variation. We'll find the Crunluath variation is not quite as pointed, and it's going to count differently. The Taorluath variation we count in duple time, 1, 2. The Crunluath variation we count in compound time, 6/8 time, pretty much no matter how it's written in the book. I'll count the Crunluath variation, and I will break from the Taorluath into the Crunluath variation. So last line of the Taorluath into the Crunluath. Hey, but oh dee, but oh he, but oh ho, but oh he, but oh he, but ba, but ba, but bo, but diddly ha, but diddly ho, but diddly ho, but diddly ho, but diddly 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's the rhythm for your Crunluath variation. And when you break from your Taorluath into your Crunluath, you want to establish that rhythm as quickly as you can. So, the Crunluath variation is slightly quicker than the Taorluath variation. And the minute you finish that last Taorluath, you got to snap into your triple Crunluath rhythm. So, and the E at the end of the Crunluath is quite relaxed. It's the length of an 1/8 note in 6/8 time. So don't jump off it the way you might jump off the last note of the Taorluath. One other point to make, these variations are technically challenging, but to the best of your ability as you go, you're going to try to give them a little bit of phrasing and expression. As I mentioned earlier in the G-ish, pointing out every second one just a little bit more, so the even numbered Taorluaths and Crunluaths, the theme notes, just give them a little bit more. Ho, ba-diddly he, ba-diddly ho, ba-diddly ho, ba-diddly ho, ba-diddly ho, ba-diddly ho, ba-diddly ho, ba-diddly. Don't overdo it. Remember the beat, the pulse that's going through the variation is the boss. You must stick to that pulse. But that kind of phrasing, even touches of it where you can, help add a lot of interest to your tune. And one of your goals as a Piobaireachd player is to make your tune interesting. Okay, let's hear the Crunluath variation now on the dagger, including the transition from the Taorluath and the transition into the Crunluath mach. Let's finish with the Crunluath and mach variation. This variation is quite optional, so if you're a beginning or intermediate Piobaireachd player and you haven't played a Crunluath mach variation as of yet, there is no need to panic. You do not have to play it until you are ready. In fact, the Crunluath and mach variation is not even listed in either the Kilberry book or the Piobaireachd Society. Now, having said that, there's also been a long-standing tradition of not playing Crunluath and mach variations in laments. However, in modern times, this view has softened somewhat, and if a Piobaireachd has a Crunluath variation with lots of bottom hand notes that will make a suitable mach variation, we tend to play it whether it is a lament or not. Your Crunluath and mach variation will be very slightly faster than your Crunluath, just a bit. We want the Crunluath and mach variation to hopefully elicit some excitement. And in that way, it's nice if it's just a little wee bit hurried. I tend to do that when I have several mach movements in a row by just rushing them just the very slightest bit. I still play them in twos, but just a little slight bit of rushing to give the variation a slightly frenzied feel. Maybe something like this. If you have trouble with the Crunluath mach, or if you're not familiar with it at all and you're wondering what my fingers are doing there, I have a video on this channel on the Crunluath and mach. And one of the things I say in that is, one of the ideas is not to play the Crunluath and mach as quickly as you possibly can. You don't want to crush the movements. It's a lovely, beautiful, rippling, poetic movement, and you want to keep it nice and open. Try to avoid this. Keep it nice and open. And in with the other variations in this tune, think in twos. Ho-ba-diddy, ha-da-diddly, ho-ba-do-ho-ba-dee, 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 ho-ba-diddly, ho-ba-diddly, ho-ba-diddy, ha-da-diddly, ho-la-diddly, ha-la-diddly, ho-ba-do-ho-ba-dee, ho-ba-do-ho-ba-dee, ho-ba-diddly, ho-ba-diddly. Okay, let's listen to the Crunluath mach on the dagger chanter. You may have noticed, if you were listening carefully, that there was almost no slowing down, if there was any at all, at the end of the Crunluath before I went into the Crunluath mach. I just rolled straight into the Crunluath mach. Very much the way in most Piobaireachd we roll from the singling of a variation into the doubling. We don't very often slow down a singling before we go into a doubling, but we will slow the end of a doubling down before we go into a singling. You may have also noticed that at the end of the Crunluath mach, I went back and played the first line of the ground. That's the traditional way that we end Piobaireachd, you would normally play that first line twice through because it is repeated. This is a fairly short tune. This would win prizes if it were played well in lower amateur grade contests. In higher grade contests, it's just a little bit short. If you're an established Piobaireachd player, it's a fun tune to play. It's a great little warm-up tune. It's 5, 6, 7 minutes. It also goes over very well in recitals because it's melodic and it's not too long. That's it for Alastair Dearg MacDonell of Glengarry. I hope you enjoy the tune as much as I do, and I hope you enjoy the whole concept of Piobaireachd as much as I do. Until next time, from me, Jim McGillivray at the Pipe Box, good piping.